Welcome back, everyone, to the Breakpoint Show. It is April 10th. Wow, the year's gone by quick. And the month has gone by quick. But it's great to be back with Khalid and Martin. It's been a little while. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
All good here, all good. Also surprised that it's April 10 already.
I know. We're already past one quarter of the year. So, and it feels just like Christmas just happened. So we don't really have a topic for this week. We're just gonna be talking about different things that we're all doing, or perspectives, or ideas, or just whatever we tangent off, like we're so good at doing. But before we start, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, or subscribe in your podcast aggregator application, or out on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like this episode, you can hit the like button. If you don't like it and you're still listening to it, that's your own problem. So, but let's talk about. I've I listen to a lot of podcasts, so I like podcasts, and there are a lot that I listen to that are from a mean stack, or from what I call open source web developers.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many build managers, and there's all these tools that make the client side development. I don't know if it makes it better, but it makes it. Some people prefer all these different tools to help out with CSS and deriving web pages and doing whatever they need in the browser. And I was curious if there were anything. Have you guys seen anything that maybe ASP.NET Core developers could use to make their lives better, or their users' experience better?
Yeah. That's a tough question, because I think about this a lot. And when I'm on social media, I see folks being pulled in by the siren song of, man, maybe we could do this in .NET. And I've tried to do this kind of stuff in .NET, especially in ASP.NET Core. And the truth is, for me, the build managers in the JavaScript ecosystem, things like Vite or Webpack, Rollup, like all those things that essentially process your HTML and do things like asset minification, or post-processing of CSS files or SAS files or images. Those things are very, very helpful, especially if you're trying to optimize web applications, or static sites and things like that. But the thing that becomes more and more difficult in ASP.NET Core is we have the Razor View engine. So when you do things like put images in there or put CSS assets, there's no life cycle events in Razor that you could essentially like post process your Razor views to get the benefits that those build tools get. So what I'm seeing happening in the ASP.NET Core ecosystem is there's fragmentation. So there's folks that are sticking with ASP.NET Core Razor pages and trying to integrate these other build tools and having varying levels of success. That's one camp. But then the other camp is people just giving up on Razor completely and just saying, look, I'm going to use front-end technologies and front-end build tools for my front end, and then I'm going to use ASP.NET Core to power my back end. So, that's kind of how build tools are being integrated into the ASP.NET Core ecosystem that I'm seeing. But there are attempts to bring things like Vite directly into ASP.NET Core Razor. But again, it has like varying levels of success just because of the life cycle. But that's been my experience. But I don't know, Martin, you're nodding, so I think you have something to say too.
I see the same thing is happening, but on the other hand, I also think like, does it really matter that much? I mean, both are valid options. You still have lots of websites out there that are absolutely not optimized, which is a shame, I will say, but also not a bad thing. They also work, and the internet is happy with them.
Yeah, I guess so. But this is where I disagree with you. It's like, it's the small things that these build tools can bring, like optimizing CSS. So one of the things Vite can do is look, as a post process, it can look at all your HTML pages and determine, okay, what CSS classes am I actually using? And if you're pulling in something like Tailwind or Bootstrap and you only use 10% of that CSS, well, it doesn't make a lot of sense for your CSS file to contain all these extra classes that the browser has to parse and put into the CSS DOM. And I think that's what those build tools can bring. Again, currently there's no way to do that in Razor, because since Razor pages are essentially dynamic, you can't post-process these pages and essentially say, oh, by the way, I'm only going to use these CSS classes in these Razor pages. So to your point, Martin, it's like you're arguing it's good enough. Not a lot of people notice, but if you're striving to build the best web application for your users, I do see ASP.NET Core developers at a disadvantage when it comes to optimizing web pages and websites. So.
Yeah, especially images. I mean, how many times have you hit a ASP.NET app and a page within there, and you see an image and it's not very big, but then if you actually take a look at it and download the image, it's like 4 times as large as what's being shown in the page. And that just means that you're bringing down an image that, one, is just really large, and 2, has the added size gives your site no advantage whatsoever. So yeah, leveraging or getting a way to, and it maybe is just a part of the actual compilation would be nice to, when you compile your ASP.NET Core Razor page, be nice to have some tie-ins that say, hey, take a look at the images that this page uses and like resize those and set the size in the Razor page.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's what's missing. Just something where like you could compile your Razor views so that they're dynamic, but then maybe there's an additional step that you could give the compilation step a set of data that would exercise your views to generate something that you could post-process with like Vite. And that would do things like, again, manage your CSS or optimize images or do all sorts of stuff. So right now that part is really missing from ASP.NET Core. Like the things that I see going into .NET are really trying to optimize the protocol, the HTTP protocol, but really no effort is going into optimizing the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that gets produced from an ASP.NET Core application. So
and have you seen that anyone over on the Microsoft side, on the team, on the ASP.NET team, have they even acknowledged any of this? Or because I haven't.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll reach out to Damien. He's still who isn't. I'll have to find out. But now that I'm an MVP, maybe I can raise some hell. So push some buttons and annoy people. So
yeah, it's one of those things that I'd love to see in ASP.NET Core, because Razor, I feel like, is actually a very good templating language.
Yes,
but it's just you just don't have the capabilities. So
yeah. So I still stand by my opinion that both options are fine. However, also having worked on a Astro Starlight documentation website in the past weeks, it is blazing fast if you do have all of that optimization in the pipeline. But then thinking about the implementation details of this, if this would be something in .NET, you would almost have to have a copy of that entire toolset in .NET, because combining the JavaScript post-processing with Razor pages, the dynamic nature and everything there is just going to be impossible, I think, and very bug prone.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Another topic. Anyone bring anything else?
I have a rant. I really have a rant.
I love rants.
So my side project, Speaker Travel, is hosted on Azure. It's not high traffic. Yes, it needs some stuff in terms of resources and so on, but it's definitely not the biggest website and so on. And up till 2 months ago, I was able to host this thing for around 30 to 40 bucks a month. I just got the bill this morning of the past month, and it was 110 without any changes to architecture, no changes to telemetry being sent, no noticeable changes in how often it's being used, the number of requests, etc. The only thing that went up is the bill for application insights. So I'm wondering, observability obviously matters, and it's a super helpful tool, and the more data you can get out of your application, the better. But what are you seeing in the observability space that might be better than just racking up bills for a very, very small, low traffic website?
Oh, it's cheaper than Datadog. Let's just say that. I think Microsoft, because they see how much Datadog is charging for something like this, and they're probably like, oh, well, our users can probably withstand a little price increase. But there's other. I used to have a business card around here for a guy I met at Copenhagen Developer Festival last year that had a observatory, like a company that did observability. Yeah, observability. Sorry, my dyslexia is kicking in. So I know there's companies out there that will let you do it cheaper. I kind of wonder if there's any open source projects around that for ASP.NET Core and Azure.
No, you just end up having to do like log shipping with Zipkin and Grafana and all that stuff. It just starts to become a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I will give credit. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I've been playing with, at least on my local development machine to gather information out, is the Aspire dashboard, but running it separately. So not using Aspire, but just running a dashboard to collect all of the telemetry and get everything in there, which works well. But the problem is the moment you put this in production, all of the data is essentially stored in memory. So you have no persistence. And if that instance reboots or whatever, you lose all of the data that you have in there.
Yeah. I will give Microsoft credit. Application Insights is kind of a nice product. The problem Martin is running into is probably a problem a lot of people run into, which I've also run into. It's just, it stores a lot of data. So I think a lot of people think Application Insights is a plug and play product. And in some respects it is. You just install the package and everything just starts kind of talking. But you do have to go in and try to figure out how much data you actually need to store and what is important. The problem is with tools like Application Insights, you don't know what you need until you have a problem. And then when you have a problem, you hope you have everything you need. So It becomes kind of a chicken and egg. And I think a lot of developers just say, you know what, I'm just going to capture everything. And that's kind of the cost of doing business there. So sorry, Martin.
Anyway, my main rant is basically that my observability is costing twice as much as the entire hosting and container repository and everything. So end rant.
Well, I think so. If people are in this situation, I guess what could they do? They could reduce the storage time for their logs, right? So maybe you're storing 30 days out. Maybe you should just store like a week, right?
Yeah, so the default was 90 days and I have reduced it to 30. So that's helped a little bit. Looking at the projected bill, it actually is a little bit lower, but the problem is the ingestion part is still there, which is also quite costly. Even if you only keep it for a couple of days, you're still paying for that.
It's the bandwidth.
So now my thing is I'm going to do sampling where I'm just sending like 40% of all the data that I have. But the problem there is, like you say, if there's an issue with one specific request or one specific thing you want to investigate, there is a chance that you don't have that information, even though the general trends will be visible.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks that this thing that feels like a foundational part of building any production application, which is like visibility into your system, is something you have to pay for, exorbitantly pay for. And I think that's kind of, I don't know, it's like it's buying that fancy sports car and then realizing the oil changes are like $1,000 every time you go in. It's like,
well, it's basically when this was like 25 years ago. We had first moved down to Atlanta, and they had this special where you could lease a Land Rover for like $500 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I started looking at it, and I talked to some friends, and they're like, "Oh, well, there's a reason why it's $500 a month. It's all the maintenance is where they get you, because you have to take it back to their garages to get fixed." And like you said, oil change was back then. It was like $500.
Oh wow!
And any maintenance was so basically anytime you took it into the shop for anything, it was $1,000.
Yeah,
that's how they got you.
We'll call Application Insights now has a new marketing campaign. Application Insights, the expensive oil change of Azure.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's apropos that they use razor pages, because that's the thing. They give you the razor blade handle, and then they charge you a lot for the razors. I just think that because Datadog charges so much, I think Microsoft is like, well, we still don't charge as much as Datadog. So, and I think they do quite well compared to Datadog. And it's probably a lot for enterprise users and people that make a lot of money that need that feedback on their sites.
Mm-hmm.
They probably are just absorbing it as a cost of business.
Yeah.
So,
well, I will say, having looked at alternatives and maybe even rage quitting Azure because of this, I will say, looking at everything else that is out there, especially here in Europe, Azure is pretty good in just being able to say, okay, I want something to live at this host name with this configuration. Here's a container image, go wild. That is sorely missing in Europe.
Yeah. I will say, this is not an ad or a plug, but I've used a company called Railway in the past. I think you have played with fly.io in the last week or so, Martin. I think those are really compelling, like hosting as a service products, because again, it kind of gets back to the Heroku model, which is like very simple code oriented, repository oriented deployments. And I went into the Azure dashboard the other day and the GCP Google Cloud dashboard the other day, and I'm just like, it's very overwhelming. If you're just getting into deploying to the cloud, those service dashboards are infamously overwhelming. So, anyways.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Please, your turn.
What other rants do we have?
Yeah. Or observations.
It's funny. Martin mentioned we were working on Astro, like doing an Astro website. And I was thinking about this the other day. Like, with ASP.NET Core, well, I'll start on the JavaScript ecosystem side. On the JavaScript ecosystem side, there's like multiple entry points into that ecosystem. So Martin and I, we want to do a documentation site, and we want it to be mostly static. So there's an entry point into that ecosystem where it's like, oh, this is what we want to do, or we want to build just a simple one-pager HTML site that is static at the end of this. There's an entry point into that ecosystem. I was starting to think, like, what are the entry points into the .NET ecosystem, and what is the bar for that entry point? So some of the entry points, obviously, like if you want to build a dynamic web application, ASP.NET Core starts you off with kind of like the ASP.NET Core pipeline and Razor pages or minimal APIs. It's kind of this like higher bar entry point that I think maybe is a little more difficult to get into. Another entry point, desktop development, Windows development. I think that one maybe is a little simpler if you just want to do Windows stuff, but there's still complexity there. And then
saying WPF isn't complex enough.
well, there's always WinForms, you know, like
I know.
WinForms, you just drag a button on and then
That's true.
add a handler, you're good to go, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
And then like game development with Unity, it's built on top of Mono, but it's kind of .NET, but not really, but it's C# is kind of the language du jour there. That's another entry point into the .NET ecosystem. So, but I was thinking about the barrier and how high that barrier to entry is into the .NET ecosystem, and just realizing like it's typically much higher than most other ecosystems. Like we're kind of missing a couple rungs in the ladder to get into .NET. And for me, I wonder if that explains why, like if you took a college graduate today and said, hey, do you want to do JavaScript or do you want to do .NET? I almost feel like a lot of people would pick JavaScript because those first initial rungs are there. Like you can get a website running quickly and even deploy it somewhere like Glitch or itch.io or GitHub Pages. Whereas like .NET, like Martin's saying, it's like you got to figure out what cloud host you're going to use, if you're going to Dockerize it, put it in a container. That complexity is just there.
Yeah, but so I'll push back on you a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think the level, the entry level stuff with JavaScript is there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once you kind of go up,
mm-hmm.
you hit a place where you have to learn all the complexities of client-side applications and all the tools that come with it. So I will say the barrier to entry may be a little harder with .NET, but
mm-hmm.
there's no once you get into it, you're into it, and there's no relearning or jumping to a very higher plateau to learn the complete story. I think JavaScript gives you this, and that open source stack gives you a very low, and then once you hit like that 60-70% of what you want to do,
mm-hmm.
then it says, oh, now you have to learn all this other stuff, and it just opens up a huge world that's great, but it takes a lot to learn, where I think .NET and ASP.NET kind of makes you, the pain is sooner, and once you get in, there isn't as much pain to continue on to the end.
I guess so, but if you look at human behavior, like I guess you're kind of making my point in the sense of like if you look at human behavior, as soon as we form a habit, we're likely to continue that habit. Whereas like if you're saying the pain of ASP.NET and .NET is early, those developers are likely not to develop the .NET
I know
habit.
it's human nature to always go
So
down the easy. It's like, I guess it's like a drug dealer. I mean,
Yeah.
But does this also mean that we all formed the habit of having this pain early on in our file new project journey?
I think so. Yeah, we're all connected through trauma.
Well, I mean, the first generation of web development,
Yeah.
it was easy, man. It was basically just static pages and there was nothing dynamic.
And animated GIFs.
Animated GIFs, blinking lights, marquee.
I actually made a 88 by 31 pixel banner this week to put on our website, and Martin was like, "No, we can't put this anywhere. We can't go back to the 90s."
Yeah. But
no, but I guess my point is, it's like, it's not saying one ecosystem is better or worse. I'm just saying, like, if you look at the entry points into .NET, I feel like there's a class of applications that are missing to get people into the .NET ecosystem. Like, and clearly the one that always sticks out to me is like, if you want to generate a static site very simply in .NET, like, there aren't really a lot of options at all.
No, and it would be nice just to go, hey, it would be nice to have that, to say, hey, here's a static page, and almost like they could leverage the web form editor and just go, okay, make your page, save it, and it saves it in some static directory, and you're good to go. But interesting.
Yeah. Or even, I was thinking about the Razor directives. So at the top of the page, you usually say at page, right? It'd be nice to be able to just say at static. And what that would say is, like, at compilation time, go ahead and execute this page and generate an HTML like output from this thing.
Yeah.
And I think that would be actually very helpful for a lot of people getting into .NET. But instead we get something like Blazor, which is, like, I think, going in the wrong direction of complexity for entry points, because now you're in that realm that you're talking about with JavaScript, where you have to learn like React and the build tools and the life cycles, and
exactly,
that's just a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking this just because I'm thinking about the community as a whole. But again, I think there's a couple entry points they're just kind of missing, and I think adding them would do a lot to kind of bring more folks in. But maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want to gatekeep. Maybe we want to hoard this .NET thing to ourselves.
Yeah, we want it all to ourselves. Yeah. Well, I use a tool that's built with .NET, but it just converts Markdown to HTML, and that's retype, which is a great tool. Now, it forces you into one style of user experience, so you can't build like your own whatever web page or web pages that you want. So but yeah, I can see where that would be nice to have for certain, even in like a web page. I mean, if you had an about box or about page, or stuff like that, those can be static, and then the first time they get generated, they go into a cache that never expires, because they're never going to change. There's certain things that never change, and so okay, I agree with you on that. So
cool.
But then I'm gonna give a little bit of pushback on this one, because Khalid, you and I have both been in this client-side JavaScript static site generator ecosystem as well. And yes, some things would be nice to have in Razor, but on the other hand, the JavaScript static site generation community is just massive. There's a bunch of projects that you can use, but also every single project has a really rich and vibrant open source community where people are contributing components, contributing styles, themes, all of those things. So yes, Razor adding that would be a first step, but then all of the other things are still going to have to be implemented. And I think at this point, it's probably just easier and even more productive to just look over the edge and go with JavaScript there.
Yeah, you do make a good point. It's like, I guess for me, I'm thinking about entry points to ultimately get more people, to have more ideas, to have a diversity of thought.
Yeah.
And
but then
yeah.
the pain would probably be similar, because someone would start off with a static site in .NET and then all of a sudden realize that there's no components that they can use or no whatever they want to integrate there, and then look over in the other ecosystem and see that Astro has 3,000 free themes that get you up and running in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that pain is back. That pain is back there.
So is Astro just the new like WordPress? Because that's what 10, 15 years ago, that's what WordPress
it's the new Hugo or whatever static site generator you wanna put there.
I will say again, like to Martin's point, there are a lot of options in the JavaScript ecosystem. So it's like part of picking tools, we like to think we're engineers and scientists and we're making rational decisions, but let's face it, we're just animals acting on our baser instincts. Like when we see something that jives with us, that kind of like speaks to our like animal impulses, and we just like it, we can rationalize why we like it. But I think in the JavaScript ecosystem, there's just more things that you can find that you will like, and you don't have to explain why you like it.
Wow.
And on top of that, there'll be other weirdos who like what you like, and then you can grow a community of weirdos who love this thing and grow it. And I think in .NET, it's just harder and harder to find your community of weirdos to kind of help build something.
Yeah. Well,
I found you guys.
That's what the beauty and the beast of JavaScript is the beauty is there's lots of projects and there's lots of ideas and people create things. On the other hand, there's lots of things and there's lots of ideas, and people are always like the churn in JavaScript is a lot bigger and a lot heavier. I mean, wait 2 minutes and there's another JavaScript fancy name project that will come out that someone will say is the greatest thing in the world. So
I will say this though, like over the last 5 years, with the effort from like the Vue team and Vite and those folks who have started to try to like pull people together, I think Vite is really forming the foundation of modern web development in a way that
nice.
Yeah, so it's like, I get what you're saying. There are still a lot of options. There's still a lot of NPM packages, but it's like, I think the chaos is definitely starting to die down, and you're starting to see kind of the consolidation of ideas, because I think that community has definitely matured to the point where it's like, yeah, they don't want to have to rewrite an application every time they open their project. They want continuity. They want stability. And to be honest with you, with Astro, I've been able to upgrade like 3 versions, and it was so simple. It was actually even easier than upgrading a .NET project from like .NET 7 to .NET 9 or something, because it was just like you run a single command and it just patched the project for me. Like I didn't have to type more than anything. Whereas again,
but that's the beauty of having kind of that everything enclosed behind your static site. I mean, you're not adding a lot of third-party tools or third-party code into your site, right? You're basically leveraging what Astro gives you out of the box, right?
For the most part, but again, they're using like the patchwork that's happening is really fascinating because again, it's like there are mixtures of things like Tailwind's tooling or Veets roll up in there, and like people are building really great solutions in the JavaScript ecosystem, and I think it's worth looking at it.
Sure.
And especially like the hot reload functionality is really like top tier. Like I don't see how in the .NET space we get to experience like that, because it's maybe .NET's just not built for something like that.
Well, I'm still gonna say I'm not a big fan of the JavaScript side just because it's so complex. I mean, like I did a talk last week at a conference and I talked about HTMX, and I go, look, you incorporate HTMX into your server side ASP.NET Razor page and you get one library. Do a new Vite starter React application. You get 600 modules, 600 npms to start. I mean, that's the barrier that I understand, but 600 modules just to get a React baseline application.
Hey, you're not gonna hear me defend React. So
I mean, and it's like that with a lot of the like Angular is the same way. Vue might be a little easier, a little smarter, but you still have tons of required packages that you don't even know anything about. They're just dependencies of dependencies of dependencies.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I will say, like, you have some good points. I will say, folks, go try those things out and see if they work for you. And I'd love to, again, the thing I would love to see is just kind of a bridging from .NET into that ecosystem so that we can have more options.
Yeah. Sure. Like in the beginning, if we could have a little more tie-in for optimization and have a little in the pipeline for compiling a ASP.NET Razor page project or solution, you could say, hey, like add in this for image optimization. It would be nice. But is anyone asking? I mean, I've never heard anyone raise that request. So I don't even know if if the ASP.NET team even has it on their radar.
So it's funny you say that, because maybe this is a mini rant, because I've been thinking about this a lot. It's one of the things of like, remember like 10 years ago when everyone was writing the I'm leaving .NET blog posts, which kind of like cringy, but it's like, I think what's happening now is when you say something like, is anyone asking for it? Probably nobody's asking for it, because people are like, I don't have time to ask for things. I'm just going to go ahead and use the thing to solve my problem right now. And I think,
or they may not, they probably expect Microsoft not to do it because it's a chicken and the egg. If they don't ask, Microsoft doesn't know, but then they go, well, no one else is asking for it, so why should I?
Yeah, and then I think a lot of people, and again, what you're seeing, this fragmentation that we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, the fragmentation ends up being like, well, we can't sit around and wait for this solution to appear. We're just going to go ahead and fragment, and we're going to draw the line between front end and back end.
Yeah.
And you've seen .NET kind of like give up on the front end in some respects and kind of hand it over to.
Are you saying Blazor is not the thing to use?
If you like Blazor, you like Blazor. That's all. You go be happy with it.
Yeah,
but I think a lot of teams have decided that, again, like Martin mentioned, there's just a lot of people out there doing more of the front end stuff than there are Blazor folks. And it's not a better or worse situation. It's just if I'm building a team, I'm building a company, I'm building a product, I know I need resources and humans to build this stuff. And React, Vue, and Angular right now, they're just overflowing with people.
Yeah, there's lots of people out
Yeah.
there. Yeah, well, you know what? I'll ask.
Go ahead. You're the troublemaker.
I'll take the bullet. So why
But
not? Hey, you know what? The worst thing that can happen when you ask for something is either you get ignored or you get a no. That's the worst thing. I mean,
I will let's end on a positive note. I'll
yes.
say something that's going pretty well in the .NET ecosystem, which is again protocol optimization. So you're seeing things like Kestrel get HTTP2, HTTP3 enhancements. So the ability of ASP.NET server applications to serve requests and to process requests, that is at a level that I think is like really, really competitive across all ecosystems. So again, if you're building APIs, if you're building line of business applications that are processing things on the back end, I still think there's a lot of work going there. And I think it's worth looking at empowering your services with .NET.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
I mean, in my book, I don't want to plug things, but in my
go ahead and plug things.
Networking book, I did do a chapter that talked about Quick, UIC, and that's how Microsoft is allowing you to say, I want this in HTTP3, which is Quick protocol, which is, if no one's ever heard of Quick, it's basically replacing TCP. So Quick is very much like UDP, and it's a lot better when you're sending out all your packets and stuff like that than TCP. TCP is very rigid in its discipline of getting packets in certain orders and stuff like that. But Quick is nice. But HTTP is based on, or 3 is based on Quick, and we all have to learn Quick now. Or use the Microsoft libraries that encapsulate it.
Yeah. I think, again, it's at the protocol level. So I think a lot of people will just turn it on and they'll see the benefit of it. Which is kind of nice. But
I think also to end up on a nice note there, I think a lot of things are happening protocol-wise and tooling-wise as well. I think the tooling in .NET is fantastic with different IDEs that all have fantastic debuggers, great profiling tools, and all of that. So I think a lot of that foundational work that goes into Kestrel, for example, as .NET developers, we'll probably all take it for granted, but it's actually a really nice ecosystem to be in.
It is. And I mean, to be honest, I think most people go into on the JavaScript path because it's cool and there's a lot more. It's kind of like Vegas. There's lights and big screens, and it draws you in there because they've made it out to be a lot sexier than .NET. And I mean it's the frustration I have because I see things as, I don't want to be complex. Things shouldn't be complex. You talk to someone that's a JavaScript developer and they do everything in the client. And it's like, why do you have to do everything why do you have to even do anything in the client? And they're like, well, it's just the way it always has been. It's like, no, it hasn't always been like that. So I guess I'm just this like guy that just like Don Quixote and going after the client side windmills. But yeah, I just don't see I think people get fooled into thinking that they have to do client side development. If they do anything. And there isn't. There's server-side stuff, and there's static, and there's lots of different options. But I think people go back to your analogy, where animals were dirty apes, and we pick things that we pick because of that.
Yeah.
So,
I will say again, that's like, it's funny we're talking about the web, but the thing that I've noticed happen, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, is kind of the resurgence of the terminal and the terminal-like experience. Things like NeoVim definitely have like a strange trajectory in terms of adoption right now. Like everyone is building a terminal, everyone's building a terminal emulator to do things like SSH and things like that. So
yep.
Like while there's like a cutting edge trend in technology, there's almost like a retro trend happening, which I think is like, it's interesting to see both sides of those coins kind of play out right now in tech, where it's like, you need all this UI, all this user experience. And then a lot of people saying like, I want no UI, no user experience.
I want my CLI. And I mean, I keep seeing social media posts for updates to FreeDOS. It's like, oh, excuse me, interesting. FreeDOS. I thought we left that terminal, like train terminal, like 30 years ago, but guess not.
Yeah. All right. Well, Martin, you had one last thing to say. It seemed like you were on the.
I have nothing left to say. I think the terminal is great. The web is great. ASP.NET is great, except App Insights.
Yeah. You know what? There's rants, but you know what? And I'll say, let's do an asterisk. If we didn't rant about ASP.NET, it would mean that we weren't passionate about ASP.NET in this ecosystem. So I do want to say, if you got through all this, we're not ranting to bash on ASP.NET. We're ranting because we see that there's an horizon that we could go to that could give us a lot of these capabilities, or at least we assume that there's the horizon. So so I still love ASP.NET, Razor Pages, and I try to get people to see the beauty in server side development. Just like if people ask me like, hey, what did you do like my workshops in? It's like, just use retype and mark down, or use anything. I mean, there's so many different tools that leverage retype or markdown turned into HTML static pages. Sorry for going on my own mini rant. So
no worries.
It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, but
it means you're passionate about it.
Yeah, we're all passionate about it. But so, okay, well, this is the Jibber Jabber episode, I guess.
Yeah.
Next episode, I think we're gonna do a guest. So you didn't hear this, Khalid, but Martin and I were talking the other day, maybe doing alternating episodes where we do three of us get on to talk about a topic or reflect on what's happening in the communities that we are part of, and then maybe an episode where we get a guest to talk about their passions and stuff like that. So, but if anyone has ideas for either one of those types of episodes, if you want us to talk about a certain thing, we will. If you want a certain guest or you want to be on the show, just let us know. But again, like and subscribe. But yeah. And I think we have our next recordings on April 22nd. So less than 2 weeks, we'll get this out, or the next episode, and we'll get a guest. So, because I know people don't want to just keep staring at our three ugly mugs all the time.
That's fine. It's like Ripley's Believe It or Not exhibit. People just, oh God. When they're
I
feeling
remember that TV show. You guys probably don't remember the TV show, so I'm aging myself.
Yeah.
But
Well,
cool.
all right, folks. To see you later.
We'll talk to you later. Have a good 2 weeks.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
See you, folks. Bye.